Alright, hey, shalom, akim, shalom. First and foremost, as always, before we get started, giving all praise, honor, and glory unto our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that have taught us His truth and that rule well. And peace and blessings, as always, goes out to the hopeful members of the elect, scattered throughout the four winds of the earth, that are in the hopes of receiving salvation and mercy during the time of Jacob's trouble, and that are serving the Heavenly Father in sincerity, in spirit, and in truth. Alright? Now in this lesson, as you can see within the title, do not despise these small beginnings, number 2. Alright? And a couple weeks ago I did a video concerning a precept in Zechariah the 4th chapter, where it speaks upon the idea of, going back during the time of the Medial Persian Empire, when King Cyrus gave us the green light to go rebuild Jerusalem, right, along with the temple or the northern border and whatnot. There was a spirit within Jake where they got lazy. They were more so in a contrite spirit where they were, beaten down. They didn't really want to go through the whole intricacy of going through, building the temple from rock bottom, but within the spirit that the Heavenly Father put within Zerubbabel, which, if you can receive it, is Peter, right, in the reincarnation. Zerubbabel was in the spirit of getting the work done, man. And within that process, the Heavenly Father told Zerubbabel to not despise the small beginnings of building what seems to be nothing more but ruins, man. And within these times that we're living in, as the Heavenly Father has given us the spirit to be in a spiritual priesthood, all right, where we're fulfilling Amos the 9th chapter in its completeness of rebuilding the tabernacle of David by way of having the southern tribes and the northern tribes reunite. All right. At first, this ministry was a very humble beginning. Like I made mention in my last video, when you go back during the time of Abba Bivens, all right, this ministry was something very small, man. Only a small circle of men knew about it. The internet wasn't something that was made mainstream. Phones weren't even a thing back then. So at first, this ministry of what we're building was something that begun very small, all right? But within the process of the leaders of this ministry going through that rigorous operation, all right, where they were going through the process of putting brick by brick spiritually, all right, we've become a temple now, man, spiritually, So in this lesson, I kind of want to just do a little land back upon a point that I wanted to further go into in regards of us putting our hand to the plow, man, and not being slack within the labor of work that we've ultimately entered into, man. We got to have that same haste and that same due diligence that the men before us had. Again, put yourself in the shoes of a man like Abba Bivens, all right, the 7, the apostles, where they had to go through rigorous moments in this ministry where they had to sacrifice everything for the sake of getting this truth, man. We got to have that same mindset, man. We got to have that same, like I said, diligence, all right? We can't be in the spirit of us just wanting to lay back, relax, think that, we can just watch that video tomorrow. Take advantage of this time right now, man, because we're living in a time where prophecy is at the forefront, and this process of you building is going to be finished. It's going to be a wrap, so a precept that I want to get to land back upon this point is also the 1st chapter of Haggai. All right. Now, when you read this book, it's during the same period as Zechariah, and within Haggai's 1st chapter of his book, he's pretty much given Jake the same message to stop fucking around, man. So with that being said, Lord willing, this is an edifying lesson for you, brothers and sisters, and you may get what get what you can from this lesson. So with that being said, let's get this in Haggai 1, and we'll go ahead and start at 1, all right, and read it in the KJV. It says, "In the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of Yahweh by Haggai the prophet unto Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, saying, Thus speaketh Yahweh of hosts, saying, This people say, the time is not come, the time that Yahweh's house should be built. All right, and you got a lot of men that are in this spirit, man. Like, of course he's old news now, but back a couple months ago, you had Gorilla Hebrew make that statement within, I think he was on like a podcast or something, but they asked him when the end was going to come, and he said that it'll be here within the next 1,000 years. That in itself is not only a gray area, but it shows that same spirit being within our people today, man, of them thinking that the time isn't come yet, But we're living in a moment right now, man, where the prophecies are at the forefront. A beautiful precept. Matter of fact, let me get it. That we could get to land back off what we just read is Ezekiel, the 12th chapter. All right? Ezekiel 12, and I'll start at 21. Yep. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is that proverb that you have in the land of Israel, saying, The days are prolonged, and every vision faileth? Tell them therefore, thus saith Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say unto them, The days are at hand, and the effect of every vision. All right? And we're at the peak of this precept speaking loud and clear right now, man. When there's any kind of conversation of World War III, people always throw in the term, the War of Armageddon. All right? Whenever you speak about the whole point of a technocracy, biometrics, AI, all right? The people that are in the know, so to speak, they may know a little bit of something, but in reality, they don't know much. Revelation 13 and 16 is always thrown in there, so we see the mindset of people right now, all right, coming to the idea that this taunting proverb, once upon a time, has no effect anymore, so this should put us in nothing more but in a more fervent spirit to be more diligent, man, to make sure that we're in a good standing with Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and that we're rooted and grounded in the faith that He's given us, man. All right? Because, man, this whole week I've just, I've been tuning in with the whole war that's happening in the Middle East. We have the U.S. pretty much ending the ceasefire, and they're, having a back and forth with Iran. And things are getting popping, man. Call Allah Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. These are things that make us put I'm trying to quote 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. Knowing the terrors of the Heavenly Father, we persuade men. All right? Of course, we already understand what it is. But as we see these prophecies coming to pass, and we see, the word of the Heavenly Father having more life, per se, all right? It gives us that mindset to put some fire under our bum. To be more fervent and walk more clear, so to speak, in a world full of malice, man. All right. This whole week, the Spirit's been on Elder Yashuama to pretty much give brothers, edification in regards of checking themselves. Making sure that they're giving their energy to things that are profitable. Like I said, man, we live in a world where malice is at the forefront. All right. Anything in this world can cause you to go down a rabbit hole of distractions, whether it's social media, whether it's you just living this American lifestyle. All right. Everything is high paced. From the time you wake up, all right, if you don't wake up, you're rushing late to work, all right? In that process, you got to deal with traffic. You got to get something in your belly to eat. You got to, tap in with your family, all right, if you have one, of course. And, after that whole, depending on how many hours you work, 8, 10, 12, all right, you're making your way back home. You're dealing with traffic that may eat up another 30 minutes of your time, depending on how you commute. And then when you get home, you got to cook. You got to deal with, the family if you have one. We live in a world, man, where everything is very high-paced, all right? And if you're not, managing your time wisely, you're not going to have any time to serve Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, man. You have to set your priorities at the forefront and make sure that you never lose sight of why the Heavenly Father called you into this thing, man, and why He gave you this wisdom that's a mystery to the world. Right now is the moment, man, where we gotta tap in the Spirit, and I'm speaking first and foremost to myself, because this week, man, I just, things started coming up, and I was just like, fuck, man, I didn't, I always set the bar for myself to do 3 lessons a week. All right, and yesterday, man, fucking Satan was on my ass, giving me that what do you call it? That tired demon, you know. Of course, I'm not saying brothers shouldn't get the rest, man, but there's times, man, where you got to sacrifice a couple hours of your sleep or whatever it is to get, the workout, man. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to fall within the category of you doing lessons, but making sure that you stand in good graces with the Heavenly Father, man. Whether it's you praying, whether it's you, making certain sacrifices that you have to make in your life. All these things are matters that, the Heavenly Father is looking at, man. And if you're not making the right ones, you're going to be slacking in the process of rebuilding this temple, So that's pretty much, I'll go ahead and read the rest of this precept. But from here, we'll go back to Haggai, all right? It says, verse 24, "For there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. For I am Yahweh, I will speak," all right? "And the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. It shall be no more prolonged, for in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word, and will perform it, saith Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai." All right? And the Lord's word is being performed right in front of your face, man. All right? So that should put you in a spirit where all hands are on deck, making sure that you're being an asset to the ministry, man, and you're not being a liability. Making sure that your finances are on point, making sure that everything is just in check so that you can be an able body in the ministry, man. So let's jump back here in Haggai 1, and I'll read 2 again. "Thus speaketh Yahweh of hosts, saying, This people say, The time is not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house," talking about the temple, "and this house lie waste?" So here it is, man. You have Jake building their own houses, and within their houses, now they're in a moment where they're, detailing the house. They're changing the countertop to a different stone that they think looks better. They're adding little, carpentry, decorative finishes on their house, making sure that it looks pristine to how they think they want their house. But in the meantime, while they're dedicating all that time and attention to that, the Lord's house is all fucked up. If you were to live in that moment, man, you should clearly understand where your time and attention should be centered on, and that's rebuilding the house of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and not your own, man. Especially in the times that we're living in right now, all right? Where, likened unto us, reading Haggai, where we were in the Medo-Persian Empire, as they were in the land of their captivity, so are we, man. But we have more of an understanding that this land that is our captivity, this land's going to be completely destroyed, by nuclear destruction, man. And not one thing of this world will be eternal. You're not going to bring that nice, Toyota that you drive every day into the kingdom. All right? You're not going to bring your, whatever you give your attention to, man. Because we all, and I'm speaking for myself, we all got vices where we give our attention to. Don't get it wrong. All right? But none of that is going to make it into the kingdom, man. Instead of you focusing on those fleshly matters, your time should be more centered upon building this temple, man. All right? And again, that falls within the category of what you can do for the ministry, man. How you can help, brothers' lives be more livable in this hellhole that we're in. Or whether it's you just simply tapping in with brothers, man. Because we're all catching hell. We live in a world, man, where it's very hard to make ends meet, especially out here in the state of Cali. A point that I love making at camp, man, is that there's been statistics coming out specifically out here for the state of California that in order for you to live somewhat comfortably and, having a little money to just, go out and have a nice dinner, you have to have a salary or a year earning of $100,000, man. You got a lot of brothers that make barely $40,000 a year, and guess what? Through the grace and mercy of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, those brothers are happy as hell. You know, belly full of food, hydrated, catching hell, of course, but guess what? They have a sound mind, man, and that's the focal point of what we should be content with on this side. Okay? Again, brothers, in this world, we're going to constantly be in a moment where we envy at the wicked, you know? We're a nation that's regal, a nation that is royal, man. And at times, as you see people living lavishly, you may, we're in the flesh, man. Those are things that you want, all right? And that's perfectly natural, but you have to always have prophecy be what humbles you and brings you back to ground zero of understanding that we can't get that on this side, man. On this side, we're nothing more but a slave, all right? Not only to Esau's system, but more importantly, to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, man, all right? So our attention should be more so centered around what our master wants us to do, all right? And that's being attentive to his house, all right? Matter of fact, let's get that precept real quick. I believe it might be in Matthew's the 25th chapter or the 24th chapter. Let me just look up the word servant. It should be in the Gospel of Matthew, but let's look through real quick. All right. Yep, Matthew 24. And let's see where we could start. Let's start at 44. Matthew 24 and 44. And I'm going to read this in the NLT. It says, "You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected." All right? And again, we live in a world where distractions are everywhere. All right? That's why Yahushua in another precept tells us to not be overly charged by the surfeiting of this world. All right? Matter of fact, let's get that too, real quick. All right? And that's the spirit, because I didn't have any of these precepts lined up. I only had like 4. This is Luke 21 and 34. It says, "And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life." All right? And again, man, in this world, all right, and shit, even just being in this flesh, the natural instinct of a man is to procreate. You know? Have women, all right, let me see it the right way, produce children, work, and provide. That's what the Heavenly Father ordained us from the beginning to do in the earth, man. All right? But again, we are not in the season or place to do so. All right? We have to cater our life to prophecy, man, and understand the vision of what is going to be the reality of what the world looks like in the near couple days. You know? It's a rough reality that a lot of us brothers gotta accept, man. You know? Case in point for you younger brothers, you know, which including myself, something that I've just been meditating a lot upon is just the simple fact of not having a family on this side, man. You know? And when you really think about it, yeah, it hurts. You know? It hurts coming to that understanding that you can't have a woman on this side where you bear children with her. You know? But when you really look at it, it's the best thing that you can do for yourself right now, man. Not only are the women here wicked as all hell, all right? Like King Solomon said, man, out of 1,000 men, he found one righteous. But out of 1,000 women, he couldn't find one that was righteous, man. You know, how much more in this time period where this generation has become so degenerate that men act like women. Okay? And moreover, Esau is going to be, in some shape, way, or fashion, he's going to be involved within your family relations. All right? So Doing something like that on this side, man, is something that is completely, it's not in your benefit. All right. Now, of course, brothers do what they got to do, man. If you have a family, call halal Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. If your woman's pregnant, call halal Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. But the forefront of what you should install within having those relations is putting Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai at the forefront. All right. If you truly love your family, you have to put the Lord before them, man. The family, the woman that you love and you sleep with at night, she should know very well that you're not going to be her number one priority. All right? If you truly love your woman, that is something that you must put into play, man. All right? Because in order for her to be protected, in order for your children to be protected, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai must be at the forefront of what you do every single day, man. All right? When you come home from work, hey, if of course, this is just an example. This isn't, a reality it may be a reality for brothers, but I'm just using it because it just came to mind. But let's say you just came home from work, it's late as hell, and you have a lesson in mind. All right? Your whole household should be under the whole vibration that when Abba comes back, he's got to do a lesson. Let me not get up in his face. Let me show my respect to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai by letting my father do a lesson for him. That should be the mindset, man. All right? Not being this family dad where you come home, you're giving hugs, kisses to everybody, sitting down for dinner. All that takes a bunch of fucking time. Real talk. Your priority should be serving the Heavenly Father in order for what you have on this side to be protected. Okay? And a beautiful example that just came to mind was when Elijah asked that woman to feed her. When you read that account in 1 Kings, I think 18 or 17, she pretty much made, she mixed enough oil and, what do you call it, man? Flour to make a little cake, for her son and for her to eat and die. But what did she do? When Elijah pulled up and asked for it, she gave it to him, man. All right? So that should be the mindset of what our family should be on, if you have one. But, this is nothing more but to further install and bring the mindset of understanding that Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua should be your priority, man. All right? You shouldn't be like the Jakes that we're reading about in Haggai that were, sealing up their houses, which we'll get that definition as we go on in this lesson. All right, but you shouldn't be in that spirit, man. All right? You should be on putting the brothers at the forefront. Okay? But let me keep reading on. It says, "For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, Salakia, and to stand before the Son of Man." All right? Let me read that in the NLT, starting at 34. "Watch out. Don't let your hearts be dulled by caressing and drunkenness, and by the worries of this life. Don't let that day catch you unaware, like a trap. For that day will come upon everyone living on the earth." All right? "Seek the kingdom first, and the rest shall follow." Like Yahweh said in Matthew the 6th chapter, man. All right? It's a mindset that, when you start doing it, it's like, damn, man, you feel like you're missing out. You feel like you got FOMO, And it's a natural instinct, man. We're in the flesh, brothers. It's something that comes and goes, By you coexisting in this society where you have to play Clark Kent, and you look at Jake winning in this world where they got children, they got families, houses, and all this shit. It's a natural instinct to desire those things, man. All right? But again, we're superior than them. And you have to really come to a grip of understanding that. All right? One thing that those people don't have is prophecy. But we do. And that's why we live such a, for the lack of a better term, that's why we live such a boring life, man. It's for the sake of putting the Heavenly Father first and everything else last. Alright? So let's go back to where we were. Alright? In Matthew 24. And read it fairly quickly, because Jay got to start heading to camp, man. But this is Matthew 24 and 45. It says in the NLT, "A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth. The master will put that servant in charge of all he owns." So that's what's coming down the pipeline, man. If we keep being diligent, if we keep sacrificing our life for the sake of getting something better to come, we will be rewarded, brothers. Best believe that. Alright? And you really got to come to that reality. Alright? But let's read the flip side. "But what if the servant is evil and thinks, my master won't be back for a while? And he begins beating the other servants, partying, and getting drunk. The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Alright? And that is something that we do not want to experience, man. I know I don't. Alright? So this is why we live such a nomadic lifestyle, man. A pilgrim mindset. Alright? So let's go back to Haggai. Alright? Verse 4. "Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house lie waste?" So let's look up the word sealed real quick. It goes back to the Strong's H5603, Sapan. And it says to cover in, wainscoted, covered with boards or paneling. Alright? So they're paneling up their roofs. You know, out here, I know there's roofers that put copper roofing. It looks cool, but boy, so is that shit expensive. And it takes a long time. They gotta solder the pieces of copper and do all that, man. But real quick, let's just look up the word sealed definition. Yeah, hold on, Nak. It says, I put sealed. Salakia. Sealed biblically, because I don't think this is a word that the New English covers and all that. It says, in the Bible, sealed means to cover, panel, or wainscot the walls and ceilings of a building with expensive wood. Alright, so you're putting the finishing touches to a house that's already built, trying to make it look good. You know, you may polish it with some kind of I forget what they call it, to make sure that the wood is like not just waterproof, but it just stays resilient for a long time. Denoted a luxurious, fully finished, and decorated home, rather than one with raw, exposed stone or mud brick interiors. So here it is. You know, the Lord's house is all in shambles, rubble everywhere, you know, debris of, you know, broken tools, probably dead carcasses of our people, you know. But here it is, you're on your sofa, living it up, drinking some yayan, enjoying yourself, you know. We shouldn't be in that mindset right now, man. We should be in the mindset of being diligent and putting on as the elect, alright? And understanding that we're nothing on this side, man, you know, because we truly aren't. And as a matter of fact, it's a good time for me to get this in Colossians 3:12. It says, put on therefore as the elect of the Most High, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long-suffering. Now when you get that word for humbleness of mind, it goes back to the Strong's G. Let's hear how the Edomite says it.
Strong's G 5012. Tapai nafrasune. Tapai nafrasune.
Alright. And it says, the having a humble opinion of oneself. You don't matter. Alright? As the beloved Elder Ariala always says, you ain't shit, man. You know? And we truly aren't. When you really compare yourself to what we had back then, shit, we're slaves, man. Alright? There's nothing for us to boast about on this side. And if you're in that spirit, you really gotta check yourself. You know? Nigga living in a 1-bedroom apartment. A studio. You know? You got roaches. Fucking... You don't own anything on this side, man. Modesty, humility, lowliness of mind. Alright? There was a definition that I wanted to get. Okay, yeah, bro, it's pretty much the same thing. It says, the having a humble opinion of oneself, a deep sense of one's littleness. And that's beautiful, man, because we're little right now, man. The scriptures identify us, or they compare us to a worm. You know, a worm ain't got shit. You know? Likewise us, man. We don't have anything on this side. All we have is this truth. The truth is the only good thing that we have coming on this side. Alright? And that's where you should be giving all your time and devotion to. You know, reading more. I know I should be reading more. Getting to know your power more. Reading your history and doing all that. You know? Not in the contrary spirit where you're dedicating your time to a family. You know? Like the beloved elders, the apostles have said, man. Do you love your family more than the Heavenly Father does that created them? Really, you know, those are things that you should really think about, man. The simple fact of you meeting the woman that you're with right now, you didn't meet her on your own. The Lord sanctified you two to get together. You know? Your seeds. You know? The Lord formed them in the womb. The Lord made their bones, their teeth, all that. Alright? So put the Lord at the forefront, man. If you really love Him. You know? So from here, man, let me go to the chat. This will be the final couple things that I bring out, where it kind of just gives us a summary of the book of Haggai. Alright? It says, the first chapter of Haggai addresses a people who had returned from exile but had allowed the Most High's house to remain in ruins for about 16 years. The issue wasn't that they were openly rejecting the Most High. It was that they had gradually made other priorities more important. And that in itself shows that you're rejecting the Heavenly Father, man. You know? The Most High should be at the forefront of what you do every single day, man. Alright? It says they convinced themselves it wasn't the right time. This was likely an excuse. It was an excuse. You know what? Let me jump down, man, because, you know, chat. I remember when I was reading this at first, chat was kind of pissing me off. Alright? Yeah, let's get this part. It says, paneled houses suggest they weren't merely surviving. They were investing time and resources into making their own homes comfortable. After years in exile, it's understandable that they wanted stability, but their personal comfort had taken precedence over worship and obedience. Alright? And we get it, man. You know, on this side, we've suffered a lot. and we've suffered for a long time. You know? So, we get it, man. You know, there was a point where when you read Asaph's psalm in Psalm 73, he wanted the things of the wicked. He marveled at them. You know, but again, one thing that we must constantly understand, brothers, is that there is a time and a place to get it and when to get it. And right now is clearly not the time to get those lavish things that we see our people indulging in, man. You know? It's all temporary. The kingdom is going to be something that lasts forever, man. And that should be where we keep our eyes attentive to. It says, they were discouraged by hardship. The people had returned expecting blessings, but life was difficult. Poor harvests, drought, economic struggles, little return for much labor. And that's the spirit of a lot of you Jakes, man. You know? Haven't we suffered enough? Fuck no, we haven't. We dropped the ball numerous amount of times, man. So all this suffering that we're currently going through right now is nothing more but a way of how we amend our ways for the Heavenly Father, man. We haven't suffered enough. You know? So if you're in that spirit of being discouraged for the hell that you're going through, you better check yourself, man. Alright? Being in that woe is me spirit, constantly having your head down while you're around brothers, the brothers that you're around are catching the same amount of hell as you. You know, some more than others, but guess what? Everything's catered to our tolerance, man. But nonetheless, we're all fighting for the same thing. We're all going through the same thing. Alright? So again, man, you aren't important. You're as little as the man next to you. Alright? Your family isn't as important as the next man's family. The only thing that matters is Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Alright? So, for the matter of time, man, let me just go down to this point. It says, a broader spiritual lesson. Give me 1 second, Akim. It says, many readers see Haggai 1 as illustrating how good things can become distraction from the best thing. Alright? And that's ultimately why sometimes brothers, you know, that come up on some money, that's why the Lord puts you, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. There's times where some brothers come by some money, you know? But that's all orchestrated by the Heavenly Father to see what you're going to do in that moment, man. Whether you're going to get distracted, you know, start dedicating your time to things of the world, or whether you're going to use that money to aid Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, man. Alright? The Israelites were not occupied with obviously sinful pursuits. They were building homes, farming, and trying to provide for their families. Those are good responsibilities, and to a certain extent they are, man. As Apostle Gabar has said, in order for you to be a man of the Heavenly Father, you got to be a man first, you know? But something where it becomes a sin is where you start worshiping the creation more than the Creator. And that's when the Heavenly Father starts looking at you sideways, alright? It says they were building homes, farms. I read that part. The problem was that they had allowed those responsibilities to crowd out their primary commitment to the Most High. And we can't be in that spirit, man. Alright? Haggai teaches that neglect of the Most High often happens not through deliberate rebellion, but through misplaced priorities, rationalizations, discouragement, and becoming comfortable with spiritual compromise. The prophets call to consider your ways, invites every generation to examine whether their time, energy, and resources reflect what they truly value. Alright? And again, man, that's what should be something that we do every day, examining ourselves. Alright? And making sure that we're consuming the word of the Heavenly Father to make sure that we're staying on the straight and narrow path, man. Alright? So, yeah, man, with that, Lord willing, this is an edifying lesson for you, brothers and sisters. Just kind of, you know, putting some things that I was thinking about earlier today on wax. And, you know, Lord willing, you brothers were edified. Lord willing, I'll come back with another part 3, you know, because this is, you know, these are things that I like to go into, man. You know, just going into the mindset of us being focused on what really matters, you know, and that's Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, you know. Again, everything else is a side quest, you know. And it's a distraction. If it doesn't have anything to do with this ministry, man, consider it as a distraction. Alright? So with that, as always, call Allah Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachakodash, double honors to the apostles, Great Millstone, the bishops, the elders, peace and blessings unto the elect. Shalom.